banks offer coffee. So what's more important, a Marcus by Goldman Sachs loan with no fees that could help consolidate debt, or bank coffee that tastes like bank coffee? You can money. Visit Marcus.com to learn more about saving, borrowing, and investing from Marcus by Goldman Sachs.
Investing involves risk and investments may lose value. Brokerage and investment advisory services by Goldman Sachs & Company, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. Lending and deposits products provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network. 3 people died early this morning when fire spread through a mobile home in southwest Ohio. Westchester Fire and EMS Chief Rick Prinz says a police officer on patrol saw smoke and flames coming from the home. A firefighter was treated for heat exhaustion. Authorities asked the state fire marshal to investigate the cause. Ohio's Secretary of State has prepared for possible prosecution 117 apparent non-citizens who either registered to vote or cast a ballot last year. Here's ONN's Daniel Barnett.
That's a tiny fraction of the state electorate and a significantly reduced number from 2 years ago, despite record 2020 turnout. Republican Frank LaRose said of those referred to Republican Attorney General Dave Yost, 13 people cast ballots and 104 only registered. Ohio doesn't allow non-citizens to either register or vote. Only a handful of cases are prosecuted. Daniel Barnett, ONN News.
The Ohio Gun Violence Prevention Caucus met yesterday at the State House to talk about what needs to be done in the legislature to stop gun violence. Hamilton County Sheriff Charmaine McGuffey was the keynote speaker.
Because we don't pay attention to the red flag laws and we're not working on really sensible gun legislation, we're empowering people to settle their disputes with a weapon.
She went on to say that weapons on the street create anxiety for law enforcement officers who are trying to work with their community. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Live and local conversation for the Ohio Valley continues shortly, here on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Save today on your next project with 11% off everything now at Menards. Light up your garage or workspace with Patriot Lighting. Get a 15,000 lumen high bay light that's energy efficient and swivels to adjust light where you need it. All Patriot Lighting is 11% off. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through Saturday, July 17th. Savings are a mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
The Pittsburgh Zoo and PPG Aquarium has reopened its gates. Reconnect with the roar. Reconnect with the rumble. Reconnect with the wild. With new safety procedures in place, we invite you to reconnect with wildlife once again at the zoo. Visit pittsburghzoo.org for information about ticketing and our modified operations. See you at the zoo.
A serious injury from an accident can be just the start of your worries. What if you cannot return to work? How do you take care of your family if you're disabled? At Gelner Law Offices, we represent seriously injured people and understand their problem. We know how to get you fair compensation. We will work hard to make sure you get the money you deserve for your losses. Don't go it alone. If you're hurt in an accident, call us at 304-242-2900 or visit us at gelnerlaw.com.
We'd like to help.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts.
Introducing our new redesigned 7 News app. Our new app features a sleek, modern design, an easy-to-navigate home screen with quick access to local news content and a localized weather forecast. Subscribing to notifications is easier, and with one tap, you have access to recent push notifications. There are more ways to watch and find video. To get the new WTRF 7 News app, just update the latest version or download the WTRF 7 News app in your Apple or Google Play Store by searching WTRF.
Hello everyone, from the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster, with a look at your local weather forecast for your Tuesday. Isolated thunderstorms, otherwise clouds and sunshine through the afternoon. The daytime high near 84. Overnight low of 71 degrees under partly to mostly cloudy skies. Clouds and limited sunshine for your Wednesday, with a few showers on and off. A daytime high near 82. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Conversations you care about from people you know. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe, celebrating the 100 days of summer.
71 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Clear skies there. 70 degrees and sunny skies here at the Robinson, here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling. 70 degrees outside the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley, and 86 inside for poor Biff. But at least the fans are blowing on you, right?
Yeah, a fan.
Well, jeez. Hey, I have an idea. You know what? I'm trying to think, how can I help you? Because I'm here at home. How about if I get a couple of geisha girls to come in and fan you with those big fans that, like the big fans the geisha girls used to use? Maybe that would help you out. Would that be helpful to you?
I mean, a little, but it's...
Yeah, the problem there would be if you'd be getting hot from the geisha girls, and all they'd be doing is fanning you down to just where you are right now. So maybe I won't do that. It's going to be a muggy day today. Look for maybe some showers this afternoon, possibly an isolated thunderstorm. Best thing to do, Storm Tracker 7 app, and you can just follow things hour by hour on the Storm Tracker 7 app. That's what I do. I do that a lot. Download Storm Tracker 7 and have it on your phone or your tablet. And they actually do, if you scroll down, on the front of the page, it shows up with the temperature and the conditions. But if you scroll down, you can start seeing hour by hour breakdown, and it'll tell you kind of where things are going to go sky condition wise and temperature wise. And that is extremely helpful. It's 8:11 here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Is Tom with us yet? I'm guessing he just called. All right. So got a couple of things I want to get to with our national correspondent, Tom Squitieri, who is here with us this morning on the Watchdog Morning Show. Good morning, Tom. Let me try it again. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Happy Tuesday to you, as always.
Thank you
I
very
want to
much.
spend a lot of our time spend a lot of our time talking about some international affairs here this morning. But I want to start out by talking about one national political story, and that is the Texas Democrats getting out of Dodge. You might remember this, Tom. Didn't some other state legislature do this in the past year or so? Where they left the state to avoid a vote?
Yeah, I think it was more than a year ago, actually. I was thinking about that yesterday. It was either Washington State or Oregon. It was a Pacific Northwest state. I'm pretty sure that they went across the border. And then there was another time where it may have been like Arizona or New Mexico. And I'm sorry I didn't check up on it, but they actually sent out deputies to try to round up, or marshals to try to round up these folks to get them back. I think that may have been Arizona. But it's happened before, yeah. And it's a sign of either clever tactic or desperation, depending on your perspective, to try to make sure there's not a quorum to pass this legislation. That could backfire sometimes. You have to make sure you have the numbers right. I think that the famous walkout, not in the States but at the UN, of course, was when the Soviet Union walked out of the Security Council meeting over Korea. That's right. And then the other members approved the mission to Korea. So you got to be a little careful about not equating any of our lawmakers of any party with the Soviet Union. Just to be clear to listeners, just using it as a reference point.
Yeah, but what happens here in Texas, and it has happened in the past other places, is you don't have enough votes to stop the bill, but you've got enough votes to constitute a quorum. So if you leave, they can't take a vote. It only works when you've got a definitive end to the session, and I believe they're in a special session in legislature in
They
Texas
are.
right now.
Yes, they are.
So
Yeah.
so they could wait that out. But the real problem with that, I think, I don't know Texas law that well, but I would assume the governor could just call another special session to vote on this if he wanted to.
That's a good question. I haven't seen that in any of the stories I read. They're supposed to be coming to Washington, D.C., and I saw a couple of tweets that were passed along by those who are opposed to what they've done, mocking them coming to D.C., and there was a guy changing planes in Memphis, and he said, "Oh, my God, we're changing planes here, or, get out of Texas." So, it's sort of, I've gotten so looking at Twitter, just like, stay off Twitter, just do what you're going to do, and people will report on it. Obviously, if the members of the Texas legislature are leaving and most of them coming to D.C., that'll be reported upon no matter where they go. I think it does, of course, point to the larger issue of a tactic by the Republicans at this point to try to change voting laws without working. It's the same nonpartisan approach that Democrats and Republicans tend to take on these issues because neither side wants to talk to each other or work with each other. And there's always room to improve voting safety of the polls, as well as make sure everyone who's eligible to vote can vote. They're not mutually exclusive.
Well, exactly right. I think, and I'm interpreting something here too, I think what this says to me is that the House Democrats in Texas do not see relief coming from the For the People Act, because that's, the National Democratic Party is hoping to pass For the People, which would kind of obviate some of these harsher state laws that are being passed. It's kind of as if the Texas Democrats are going, yeah, we don't have a lot of faith that's going to happen, so we got to try and stop it in our own state. I may be reading between the lines a little bit too deeply, I don't know, but there is a solution or a partial solution to this, but in the nation's capital. But obviously, Tom, there's just not, and Senator Manchin's right at the heart of it. There's just not an agreement on a Voting Rights Act at the national level.
Yeah, and I also would add, if that law does pass, it could be challenged in courts, and that could delay its implementation as well, even if it does prevail eventually in the courts. So while we were talking, Howard, I went to a Ballotpedia site, which is an encyclopedia online of American politics, and their page says noteworthy walkouts by state legislators. In other words, they've left the state for at least a week. Okay, there's some. It's not inclusive of everyone, but they had, you're like this: Oregon, 2021, 2020, 2019, and 2001. That's just Oregon. And the other ones they listed recently were Indiana and Wisconsin in 2011, Texas in 2003, and Rhode Island in 1924. So
it's a tactic that has gone back a ways. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one in 24 was the Democratic minority in the Senate didn't want to vote on an annual appropriations bill unless there was a referendum for a constitutional convention. So, there was stuff like that. Just out of curiosity, of 50 states, 45 states require a majority of legislators present. A majority. 4 states require 2/3 of the legislature to be present. So that's pretty good. And Massachusetts is 2/5 or 3/8, depending on the state senate or the state house. So half is a low threshold. Texas is one of the 2/3 ones. So that makes it easier for the Democrats to do that because if you have 1/3 plus members, you could thwart the quorum as opposed to half.
Tom, do you think sometimes the general public gets fed up with all of this kind of stuff? And by that, I mean not our audience. People who listen to shows like this are informed and engaged no matter which side of the aisle they're on. They care about this kind of stuff. They know a lot of the ins and outs of politics. So I'm not talking about our listeners, but the general public that doesn't really spend a lot of time on this, do you think they get tired of hearing talk about the filibuster and the rules of the Senate, or getting out of town to avoid a quorum. My
I
sense
think
is
so, yeah.
that sort of, the general public, the unwashed masses, basically just say, get things done. Stop playing games. Stop playing these kind of games.
I fully agree,
think
Howard. Fully agree with you. Yep. Fully agree with you. I think you're right. And the last phrase that you said is the one that really resonates with me, is if people want the government to get things done or don't do anything. Don't make it worse. If you can't make it better, just go home and don't do anything and don't cause us trouble. That seems to be what I've heard for decades as a journalist. And now, of course, the last couple of years, the divide has gotten so great that now, that sort of disgust with the sort of nonpartisan, non-politic party disgust of voters with all politicians, they can't get anything done type of thing, has now, obviously generated to dislike, look at the Democrats running away because they're afraid to make these changes, or the Republicans are afraid, depending on who's speaking. I'm totally with you on this. Just get things done. And that's the other thing is, we have so many problems and challenges in this country, and these hot button issues have, I've been a reporter for a long time, and they don't go away, and it's not me saying one way or the other, but issues like abortion and gun control, these sort of hot button issues, they're always with us, and they tend to dominate more and more the political arena, meaning you squeeze out the time and in many cases the money for other things. Listen, people can't agree on President Biden's infrastructure plan, and people can debate whether that's a good plan or not. But it's difficult for me to hear anybody would say with a straight face, we don't need to fix the infrastructure in our country, no matter how you define infrastructure. I cover the Pentagon mostly, as you know, and they're very concerned about cyber attacks in this country and what the military's role should be in both protecting and countering and responding to cyber attacks. You could take that issue of cybersecurity, and some people could say that's an infrastructure issue. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Again, that's a fair debate, but something has to be done about it. Okay, and that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we don't, on this show, I generally don't get into gun control. I don't get into abortion issues. And one of the reasons is they generate more heat than they do light. And you almost never change anybody's mind or even have anybody respect the other person's opinion. So they're just certain hot button issues. And yet they become the cause celeb for the far left, or maybe I shouldn't phrase it that way, but for the base of each of the parties, the Democrats and Republicans, the base gets really energized sometimes about these things, where I think, and I've said this for years, and you used the phrase earlier, the American public just wants our political world to get things done, or as you're saying, or to not get things done, but, they just want action. They just don't want, I think, maybe I'm wrong, I think the general public doesn't want huge culture war arguments and discussions, and they just want to get things done. Fix the roads, fix the cybersecurity issues, deal with fix the economy, get more jobs. These are the things that people care about. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe we've reached a point where everybody feels this division is so great that we're going to argue cultural stuff. I don't know. Tom, let me take a break. When I come back, I want to go over to Afghanistan. We're continuing to prepare to get out of there. Some things are going on over there. I know you've been following that. I want to talk about that and a couple other international issues as well. Tom Squidiera, a national correspondent with us here, Watchdog Morning Show. Coming up next half hour, Stephen Adams from the Ogden newspaper chain, their State House correspondent, is going to join us to talk about a column he wrote this week. The Governor Justice, has opened up the entire state. No more mask mandates, no more social distancing restrictions. Everything is more or less back to normal. But he himself still stays holding his press conferences in his own little bubble inside what used to be the governor's reception room. Reporters have to zoom in, not allowed to go in. Phil Kabler from the Gazette-Mail has requested each of the last 2 weeks, I'd like to come in and engage in this press. No, this is a Zoom meeting only. Stephen wrote about that, and he's going to join us to talk about that coming up in a bit. But more Tom Squidiera, that's straight ahead here on the Watchdog Morning Show. It's 8:23.
This is Hoppy Kercheval. Join me weekdays at 10 o'clock right after...
teams, providing preventative and reactive disinfection to facilities around the region, while working with area hospitals on isolation areas and air filtering. At Panhandle, we continue to follow social distancing and hygiene protocols. We are dedicated to our community, and together, we will get through this.
Are you or your loved ones facing a serious legal battle? The law office of Paul Harris wants you to know you aren't alone. Do you need someone that's not afraid to go to trial and fight for your rights? Attorney Paul Harris and his team are willing to go where most firms are not. The courtroom. With a successful track record in civil litigation, criminal defense, including tax issues and healthcare fraud, Harris Law Office will fight for their clients by offering the most aggressive representation in and out of court. Call Paul Harris at Harris Law Office for a free consultation. 304-232-5300.
Island Pawnbrokers is now your local firearm dealer. In a pinch? Need cash quick? See us before going to the big box stores. Paying top dollar for firearms, gold, silver, tools, coins, and electronics. Don't lose your good credit. Let us give you instant cash. Stop by 2 North Broadway Street on Wheeling Island, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Island Pawnbrokers. Stop in for instant cash.
Hello, I'm Chuck Reddick, Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service. We're working hard to get ready for tax filing season. You know who else is working hard? Identity thieves. Keep your computers and your mobile phones secure. Use antivirus software and strong passwords. Look out for email scams. Secure your home Wi-Fi with a password. Stay safe when you shop online. Look for HTTPS in the web address. See irs.gov for details.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
If you need some new fishing stories to tell this summer, well, come check out the fishing selection at Rule King. They have everything you need for a day of the great outdoors, and nobody beats their prices. You can even get your fishing license and hear some fishing stories while you're there in the store. Catch and tell some whoppers this summer, and don't forget to get everything you need at your friendly neighborhood Rule King, America's farm and home store.
The Watchdog prides itself in being involved in our community, and we want to hear from you. Does your organization have an event that you would like promoted on the radio? Please send us the details via our website, watchdognetwork.com. Just click on our contact page and fill the information. Live, local, and here for our community. Share your events with the Watchdog.
Miss a part of the show? Want to hear a segment again? Check out our podcast page at watchdognetwork.com. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
8:27 on a Tuesday morning. Captain Underpants is going to be here. No, not on the show. Going to be here in my home studio shortly. Grandson Teddy is not at camp this week, so he's been with us all week. He came down yesterday, Biff. He walked in the house, took all of his clothes off except his underpants, put a cape on. He has a little pretend cape. He put a cape on and came jumping into my room telling me, Captain Underpants is here. I don't know what prompted that, and he spent all day long running around in his underwear. Captain Underpants. And I said, so at one point I said, oh, you're Captain. He goes, well, I'm not really Captain Underpants. He said, Captain Underpants has a big belly, like you, Granddad. Jeez.
Wow.
This is what I have to put up with every day. All right, Tom Squitieri is here with us, our national correspondent this morning. Tom, we are just about done with Afghanistan, right?
Well, depending on what you think, yes and no on that. Yesterday, General Miller, who was in command of the U.S. and NATO forces in Afghanistan, departed Afghanistan in the ceremony. Now, General McKenzie, who's the head of Central Command, which includes Afghanistan, will have the operational control until August 31st. And after that, Pentagon's not saying what the deal is. Now, there's so much going on, Howard, in Afghanistan that every day it really is a full court effort to keep up. But I'm going to break it down quickly. The U.S. has about 800 troops left in Afghanistan to guard the embassy and to help the Turks guard Kabul airport. That's the airport that is the only one's probably going to be left open after the Taliban has executed. Let me just make sure listeners understand. I am not praising the Taliban. I'm merely reporting on what's happening. Okay? So the Taliban has learned from their past mistakes, and their current offensive has taken them to control northern Afghanistan. This is important, Howard, because before they did not control northern Afghanistan, and that's how the U.S. was able to rally with the group called the Northern Alliance to depose the Taliban after the 2001 terrorist attacks against us. So they've learned from their past military mistakes. They're surrounding the big cities as they did before, and they're cutting off Afghan troops. They had a terrible war. They just ambushed one of the elite Afghan commando units last week and surrounded them, and the Afghan Air Force, without U.S. intelligence to guide them, wasn't able to provide air support. Despite the Pentagon's vaunted, the Afghan Air Force is this big advantage. Well, if you can't use them, they're not an advantage. So the Taliban surrounded these commandos, couldn't get their support. They said to them, surrender, and, peacefully. They surrendered, put down the weapons, and then Taliban executed them. So that's pretty grim, to say the least. Now, of course, Bagram Air Force Base Bagram Air Force Base is probably going to be the next spoils of war for the Taliban because there's a prison on the base which holds a lot of their leaders. It's lightly defended by Afghan forces. It's only an hour north of Kabul. So, the thinking of those who look at this, who don't have to sort of spin a public word, is that the Taliban will probably surround the cities like they did before and try to force the Afghan government into some kind of accommodation, if not a capitulation. They're not likely to try to storm into Kabul. They're not big on city-urban fighting. That's not their way. So the cities themselves may stay under nominal control of the Kabul government, but reality will be seen. It's not of course, we still have all these translators and drivers and other individuals who help the U.S. and NATO languishing and fleeing in fear for their lives.
I don't know how to phrase this. Are we abandoning Afghanistan to the Taliban? I mean, I know some folks have been saying that publicly, that we're essentially been pulling out. Everybody says it's a good thing, and I think it is. We've been there for a long time. I don't know, sure why we stayed after bin Laden was gone. But are we essentially abandoning Afghanistan now to a likely Taliban control?
Well, I'm going to dodge that question, and I'll tell you why. I don't like that word abandoning because you could say, yes, we're leaving Afghanistan to their own. We're leaving a government that we were there for 20 years, and a military that's been pretty well trained, at least the commandos in the Air Force. We're leaving them to defend their own country. Is that abandoning them? Some people could say yes. Others will say, as you just said, we were there too long already. The practical solution is not, to stay there forever and try to offset the Taliban and other terrorist groups. It hasn't worked in 20 years. The Taliban's still around, and and so I'm not even trying to be critical. I'm just trying to be, an honest broker here in the facts. So at some point, you either have to say we're going to be there forever and try to revamp your strategy. If indeed the goal was to prevent a terrorist attack on the United States because of people using Afghanistan as a base, well, that's been successful, and it can still be successful without being there. We'll see. John Kirby, who's the Pentagon spokesperson, said something at the briefing yesterday, twice at least, that caught my ear and that of others. Basically says it's up to the Afghans to defend their country. It's their country. They've been saying that before. He says, we will know in 6 to 8 months, if the political or military leadership of Afghanistan makes the right decisions. I'm paraphrasing him just slightly, but he kept saying 6 to 8 months. And boy, that caught my ear and everyone else because they rarely talk about timelines at the Pentagon, and that seemed to be a one indeed.
That's a timeline for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll continue to follow the story. We'll talk more about it next week. Tom, thanks for your help today, as
Thanks,
always.
Howard.
Have yourself a good week this week, whatever's in store. Maybe you'll run into some of those Texas Democrats in Washington and have a chance to talk to them. I don't know. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot, Tom. Tom Scudieri, our national correspondent here on the Watchdog Morning Show. We'll switch from the national scene to the statewide scene in West Virginia and talk with Stephen Adams, the State House correspondent for the Ogden newspaper chain. And we'll talk about TikTok delegate Joe Jeffries a little bit, also about the headline on Stephen's commentary this week. His reporter's notebook was "Trapped in a Box," referring to the governor's press conferences. I don't want to talk about that. That's coming up here on the Watchdog Morning Show, but first some headlines for you from our friends over at the Big 7, and we'll check sports as well. We're the Watchdog Morning Show here on WKKX and WVLY.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Now it's time for your local and A.
Metro News Sports, good morning. I'm Kyle Wiggs. WVU had a pair of...
Shoot.
I'm Kyle Wiggs. WVU had a pair of pitchers selected during day 2 of the...
Okay, very good. Thank you.
This weekend, Ott Elmore back with Heard That. He can't wait.
Can't wait. A lot of these guys on our team are pros and play year-round. Me, I play, that 1 week, that 2 weeks, however long we can make it last out of the year. So, I spend all year just waiting to get back to that little week-long stretch.
Ott Elmore of Heard That. Both Heard That and Best Virginia will play Saturday. A noon tip for Heard That against Team DRC. 2 o'clock tip time for Best Virginia against Woco Showtime. Play-by-play of both of those contests coming up this weekend on the Metro News Radio Network. You're listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. Marshall's basketball team has received a commitment from Jacob Connor, a 6'9" swingman from Archbishop Alter High School in Dayton, Ohio. He committed to Marshall for the class of 2022. He averaged 10.5 points, 10 rebounds, 4.5 assists per game last year in high school. Pete Alonso of the Mets, he won the home run derby for the second straight year as he outlasted Trey Mancini in the final. The All-Star game is tonight. From the Metro News Sports Desk, I'm Kyle Wiggs.
West Virginia Outdoors is the Mountain State's only hook and bullet radio show, dedicated to the more than 250,000 hunters and anglers across the state. Award-winning host Chris Lawrence has been tracking down hunting and fishing stories for more than 25 years.
Went in behind a little birch tree and head. I reached down and got the bow position and found its horns and dropped down and shot it in the neck.
Whether it's hunting and fishing news,
It tracks real super well, but not with a 60-pound carp tied to the side.
or just compelling stories about the enjoyment of the great outdoors.
How close did you let him get in before you let fly on him?
He was about 18 yards, Chris. He got turned in the right angle there, and I touched off the trigger. And when I hit him, he ran kind of up the hill, which scared me at first.
West Virginia Outdoors covers it all. Saturday mornings at 7:06 a.m. And for your daily fix, Outdoors Today brings you 2.5 minutes of news and notes from the woods and water every weekday morning. No one covers the great outdoors like Chris Lawrence. And Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
Live and local for the Ohio Valley, the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Clocks are running late. Ain't right up the morning sky. Looks so phony.
71 degrees, clear skies at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. 71 degrees and sunny here at the home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling. 70 at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Looking for a muggy day today, partly sunny, partly cloudy, probably some rain possible this afternoon, at least some showers, maybe even a storm isolated in and out throughout the day today. Daytime high around 84 degrees. The story about Delegate Joe Jeffries in West Virginia, the Putnam County Republican that ended up getting a lot of criticism, and in my opinion deservedly so, for the TikTok video that he posted. He has since taken it down or made it private, to be specific. I honestly, on Friday, I didn't think we were going to do the story. It's such a crass story, and I dodged the story on Friday, but it's really grown to be a pretty big story. Stephen Adams here with us from the State House reporter on the Ogden newspaper chain. Stephen, I guess it's become a pretty big deal down there, this Delegate Jeffries story, right?
Yeah, it certainly has. It has really kind of snowballed to some extent. I think you've got the same sort of thought process I have, because I haven't really got any concept the Associated Press right about this to some extent, just because I don't know how to handle this type of story. I know Brad over at Metro News actually transcribed the video. I don't know if I would do that, but it really has become an issue, and it's really one of several issues involving the same delegate who has a really bad habit of opening his mouth and saying inappropriate things when he shouldn't. And it's also indicative of another issue that many lawmakers, including Republican lawmakers, have with Joe Jeffries and a handful of other delegates, which is these guys really aren't at the State House to govern. They're there to vote no on a lot of things, and they're there basically to make a ruckus and make headlines, but they're not really there to govern.
The analogy may not be perfect, but it's in my mind somewhat akin to Marjorie Taylor Greene in the nation's capital, who seems to be more interested in just getting headlines, creating some controversy, gumming up the works, as opposed to actually getting things done. It may not be a perfect example, but I do think that's kind of where you're headed with that. And it's just the video. Did you see the video, Stephen?
Yes, I did see the video. I'm actually told that there was more than one video, and I've seen a second one that I didn't get the audio off of, but that had text along with that. So he's apparently doing this and has been doing this on TikTok, which, even though multiple people use it, more and more often you're seeing politicians on there, but TikTok at the end of the day is primarily a social media platform for teenagers, fairly young adults, that sort of thing. So he has posted several videos on there, but I certainly have seen the one that has garnered the most attention, that is wildly inappropriate, certainly not radio safe, I don't believe. And
No. No.
yeah, shocking that it would come from anybody in a position of authority. And look, I think you might agree with this. I think in our private circumstances, we all talk blue to some extent. Lord knows if you're around me, there's probably that bomb that probably gets dropped fairly
No,
frequently.
Stephen, I can't believe that. You're kidding me.
But you especially when you're an official, an elected official, no doubt. I mean, everybody's going to see this sort of stuff. It's always going to come out, and you've got to be cognizant of what you're putting out there in the public sphere, especially on social media now, because somebody's going to find it, whether it's a friend or a foe, and it's going to get spread around, and that's what happened with this. I got sent this Thursday by a friend of mine, a political operative, and I sent it to somebody else, and as far as I know, they kept sending it around, and that's what happened. People were sending this all over the place, and that's why this is really kind of snowballed to some extent.
Yeah, as I said, I started seeing the Twitter comments about it, I guess, Thursday night, Friday morning, and I debated on Friday, is it something I want to bring on the radio show? And it was just, I wasn't sure how to do it, first of all, because it's such a crass video. And I just thought, all right, I'm just going to let it go. But then Speaker Henshaw gets involved and demotes him in his committees. The governor calls for his resignation. Others of his colleagues have now begun to call him an embarrassment and other things. I think the Republican County, the Putnam County Republican Party Executive Committee has condemned him. And as you say, it just snowballed. It's become a story that you really can't avoid. And I wonder, I'm assuming you have not talked to Delegate Jeffries.
No. In fact, I might have to check. I might be blocked by him on Twitter. I'm not entirely sure. He's not somebody that I interact with because, I tend to talk to the people that are actually trying to govern, and he's usually not in that crowd. So I've never had the opportunity to talk to him face to face.
I would just be curious how he actually feels about this. I don't know him from Adam other than the reports that I've seen over the years. The one comment he made about the governor and what some members were doing to the governor, and a couple times he's made some public comments or some on-the-floor comments. I think he argued against, sex education or something at one point. But I don't know him at all. But my guess would be he may not be dissatisfied with this publicity. He may be okay with this. That's
the impression that I get, too. He's been radio silent on social media about this, so he's not even so much as apologized for this video being seen and being made public, and he has not said, as far as I know, anything, no statements through the legislature, through the House of Delegates, spokesperson, not a soul. And, his district's kind of interesting anyway. The 22nd district, he shares it with Zach Maynard. It's only recently gone Republican, and Putnam County, put out the Republican Executive Committee, call for his resignation. But Putnam County is a pretty small portion of his district. It's mostly Lincoln County, a little part of Logan, and a little part of Boone. But this district has always been interesting. If you recall, about a decade ago, there was a Democratic delegate, Jeff Eldridge, actually more like 15 years ago. If you recall, he's the one that came up with a bill that was going to, I think, and it's been so long, but I believe he was trying to ban Barbie.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that district tends to put out, a lot of controversies tend to come out of that particular district.
Well, Joe Jeffries, we haven't heard much from. He's completely impossible, I understand, from you and from Hoppy and others, and Brad. Just not possible to get comments from. The governor isn't quite as difficult, but it's still not real easy for you guys. Let's shift our gears to talk about the governor's press conferences. You wrote a piece this week that touched on something I've thought about a lot, which essentially is the state is open. The governor has rescinded essentially all of his emergency orders about masks and social distancing and get back to business, basically, the governor said. The Capitol is open, tours are being conducted, I think. And yet the governor is still holding his press conferences in what I call this little bubble.
That's exactly it. I call it being trapped in a box, which is a reference to an old No Doubt song from the early 90s. But that's really kind of what it is for reporters. We're kind of trapped in a box at this point. And I wrote a column about it this weekend in Sydney Intelligencer. And the whole issue is, obviously, at the height of COVID, it made sense to do these virtual briefings. And then some, especially when the lockdown was happening and cases were going up, they were very helpful, even though they were limited. We only, at first we could ask, a question or a follow-up question, and they were just limited to one question per reporter, one outlet that was allowed to participate in these briefings. And honestly, now we're in a situation with, like you said, everything being open. It makes no sense for these briefings to continue to be completely virtual. Now, I understand, the governor said this, that they like being able to have reporters participate from other parts of the state. I understand that, and that's perfectly fine. But it seems to me we have the technology to do both, to allow reporters in that room to be able to answer or ask questions and be able to still patch in reporters from around the state to ask their questions as well. This can be done, but right now, we're just still stuck and trapped in the box, just like I said. There doesn't seem to be any immediate sign that they're going to open up these briefings to in-person press.
And I'm not sure the general public understands what that means. The reality is you are either, I don't know where you tend to call, you're at your home or you're in your Capitol office or whatever, and I assume it's Zoom in, or you communicate in via remotely. But the governor and his staff control all of what so they open your microphone, let you ask a question, and they essentially close your microphone. There's none of this, Governor, that's not quite what I meant, or I'm sorry, you didn't really answer you can't do anything. You can't even shout out a question because you're literally physically, mechanically shut off.
That's exactly right. It's a real big issue. Certainly, when COVID was going on and we were still trying to get answers to things and figure things out, sometimes that would cause issues because you could not ask a follow-up question. And to the governor's credit, I've never seen them necessarily shy away from a question per se. But he has often not answered it, or rather answered with a different answer that had nothing to do with the question that you asked. That's been fairly common. And that is a problem. It's one of those things it's been said that sometimes, the press talk too much about themselves, and trust me, I understand that. But in this case, it really does kind of hinder us. And it also allows them to punish, certain outlets. For example, Phil Cavler with the Charleston Gazette-Mail. Him and I don't personally get along all that much, but he has been denied being asked a question on the briefing for the last several briefings now. He's the representative of the Charleston Gazette-Mail on that briefing, and they're not taking his question. He's asked officially several times if he can attend the meetings in person. Of course, they've said no. So they are effectively blocking out one outlet. And, to me, that's problematic, especially, the readers in the Charleston area, want to be able to read about this stuff and still can't ask a question. That's a problem.
Yeah, I want to take this one step further in my mind, which is I don't even know why we have these regularly scheduled briefings anymore. As you said earlier in this segment, it made perfect sense when COVID first began. There was news and information that was coming out almost every day. The governor was dealing with new emergency orders and, what are we going to do about schools and what about masks and even keeping track of the COVID numbers. And all of this there was value in his early everyday press events. I don't know why he is even, I guess I do, it's for publicity, but I don't even know the value of having, what is it, twice a week or 3 times a week now, but regularly scheduled COVID briefings. I don't even know what the value of that is at this stage of the game.
twice a week is how we're doing it now. I've talked to some governors, staffers on background who have told me that they have been, and this was months ago before we even moved to 2, back when we were doing 3 per week. We had originally done them 5 days out of a week, then we moved to 3, now we're at 2 on Tuesday, 1 on Tuesday today, later today at 11 o'clock, and Thursday. And they've actually have tried to kind of talk them into moving these briefings to one, maybe at least one per week, to do a general update, which I think would be fine. But yeah, when you have all these different executive orders and all these different issues popping up here and there, the value of them was important. And did they serve as a publicity stunt as well? Yes, to some extent they did. They certainly helped him in his primary election and general election, in my opinion. But we're in a situation now where, like, we're sitting at 987 active cases. So far, the India variant is not spread very fast. In fact, it went down a tiny bit. We're sitting at 17 as of yesterday's DHHR update. And you're looking at more than 65% of our older population. Actually, 65 and up, looks like 88.6% are at least partially vaccinated, which are the most at risk from any type of COVID right now. So we may see an uptick, and I say we probably will when we get into fall and winter when we're inside more, and that might cause those variants to spread a little bit more than what they will in summer where everybody's outside. But there's just not a lot of information that needs to be presented in the way they're doing it. They put out press releases every day with this data. They update the dashboard, Monday through Friday. It's just really unnecessary to be doing this, at least more than once a week.
A year ago here on this show, we were doing an hourly COVID-19 update. I mean, we had the pre-produced open, and every hour we were giving you on the show news and information about COVID and about the statewide numbers and the local numbers, and we were having guests on because a year ago we were right in the midst of it. And then we've slowly but surely faded away, and now if there's some news to report, we talk about it, and we talk about the vaccines and so on, but there's no longer a need here on this show for the daily or the hourly updates that we were doing. And I think the governor's in the same position. It's time to two things. Number one, give up this regularly scheduled press events, and number two, when he has them, get out and meet the press. No disrespect to NBC. Get out and meet the press. It just seems like that's the right thing to do. But I don't think we'll see it because this has been good for him, good publicity. And do you go to every one of the put that in air quotes? Do you go to all of the briefings now, Stephen?
No, in fact, I'm one of the handful of reporters that really don't sit on every briefing. Now, I sometimes will watch it, but in case something breaks. But very often or not, I'm not signing in the Zoom and participating. I know Brad's in the same boat as I am. He's not on there all the time now. In fact, I think the last briefing they had Thursday, they only took 2 questions from reporters. Now, I wasn't in that Zoom, but that usually means that there wasn't that many reporters in the Zoom to begin with. So that tells me that not just myself, but other reporters are, they're not losing interest, but, you got to weigh your priorities and what stories you're working on. And if, for example, with these briefings, they're getting very repetitive because outside of, updated numbers here and there's not a whole lot new to say, so it's hard to write the same story every week, which right now is get vaccinated, sign up for the lottery, and watch out for the variant. Well, there's only so many ways you can write that story, constantly. So that's the same story every week at this point.
And there's only so many times you can take a picture of baby dog.
That's exactly right. It looks ugly regardless what angle you take that photo of it.
Stephen, for folks who want to read more of your thoughts on this, the Reporter's Notebook is in the local paper and several statewide papers as well, of course, the Ogden Chain. And I appreciate your time this morning. Always good talking to you, my friend.
Thanks, Howard.
Talk to you soon. Stephen Adams from the Ogden newspaper chain checking in this morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Paid family leave. It's a good idea, I think. What are the numbers behind it? What likelihood is there of getting passed in West Virginia? We'll talk to a couple of folks about that coming up in the next hour of the Watchdog Morning Show. Right now, we'll go to ABC. They cover the world here at 9 o'clock.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Texas Democratic lawmakers leaving the state. A quorum in the State House denied.
Biffy, I'm going to step outside and talk to Captain Underpants here for a minute or two. And then we should have Amy Hutchinson and Kelly Allen coming on. And just text me, or when I come back, you can tell me. But just let me know when they're both on the line. And that's it for now. I'm going to get some more coffee to try and keep my COVID susceptibility down. And I'm going to play with Captain Underpants for a couple of minutes. All right, I'll be back. Thanks.